There is a quiet moment after we eat, a pause that most of us overlook. The plate is empty, the flavors still linger, and the body begins a complex, invisible symphony of processes. Enzymes awaken, blood flow shifts, hormones rise and fall in a delicate choreography designed over millions of years. And yet, in this very moment, this fragile window of digestion, we often act against our own biology without realizing it. It is not always what we eat that shapes our health. Sometimes, it is what we do immediately after. Consider, for a moment, the act of digestion not as a passive event, but as a deeply energy-dependent process. When food enters the stomach, the body diverts blood toward the gastrointestinal tract. This is not random, it is strategic. The stomach churns, acids break down proteins, and the small intestine prepares to absorb nutrients with remarkable precision. The parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state, takes control, slowing the heart slightly, calming the mind, and focusing internal resources. Now imagine interrupting that process. One of the most common mistakes people make after eating is lying down. It feels natural, even comforting. The body feels full, perhaps slightly heavy, and the mind seeks rest. But physiologically, this simple act can create a cascade of subtle problems. When you lie flat, gravity no longer assists in keeping stomach contents where they belong. The lower esophageal sphincter, a muscular valve, relies partly on positional support. Without it, stomach acid can more easily travel upward, leading to reflux. But beyond discomfort, something deeper happens. Digestion slows. The stomach empties less efficiently. Over time, repeated patterns of poor gastric emptying can influence metabolism, bloating, and even nutrient absorption. The body, in its quiet intelligence, expects movement, not stillness, after nourishment. This brings us to a second behavior: intense physical activity immediately after eating. At first glance, this might seem like the opposite problem. Instead of resting too much, here we are doing too much. Yet both disrupt the same delicate balance. When you engage in vigorous exercise right after a meal, the body faces a conflict of priorities. Muscles demand oxygen and blood flow. The digestive system demands the same. But the body cannot fully satisfy both simultaneously. It must choose. And in most cases, it prioritizes movement. Blood is redirected away from the stomach and intestines toward working muscles. The digestive process becomes compromised. Enzyme activity may decrease, stomach emptying becomes irregular, and discomfort arises: cramps, nausea, or that familiar heaviness during a workout. What is fascinating is not just the discomfort, but the inefficiency. Nutrients are not optimally absorbed. Energy from food is not properly utilized. The very act intended to promote health begins to undermine it, subtly, over time. Then there is the habit of drinking excessive amounts of water immediately after meals. Water in itself is essential life-sustaining, but timing matters. The stomach operates within a carefully regulated environment, particularly in terms of acidity. Gastric acid is not merely a harsh liquid. It is a highly tuned chemical system designed to break down food and activate digestive enzymes. When large volumes of water are consumed right after eating, this environment becomes diluted. The pH of the stomach shifts. Enzymatic efficiency may decrease. Proteins are not broken down as effectively, and the initial stages of digestion lose some of their precision. This does not mean one should avoid water entirely, but rather that moderation and timing are key. The body thrives on balance, not extremes. A few sips may aid swallowing and comfort, but excessive intake can disrupt the very chemistry that sustains digestion. Another behavior, often overlooked, is the immediate consumption of tea or coffee after meals. In many cultures, this is a ritual, a moment of relaxation, conversation, or habit. Yet, beneath the surface, there are biochemical interactions worth understanding. Tea and coffee contain compounds such as tannins and caffeine. Tannins have the ability to bind with certain nutrients, particularly iron, forming complexes that are more difficult for the body to absorb. Over time, especially in individuals with marginal nutrient intake, this can contribute to deficiencies. Caffeine, on the other hand, stimulates the nervous system. It shifts the body away from the calm, parasympathetic state needed for optimal digestion toward a more alert, sympathetic state. It is a subtle shift, but one that influences the efficiency of digestive processes. There is something almost paradoxical here. We eat to nourish the body, to provide it with the building blocks it needs. And yet, through small, unconscious habits, we may be limiting the very benefits we seek. And then there is perhaps the most modern mistake of all, turning immediately to screens after eating. Phones, televisions, endless streams of information. At first, this may seem unrelated to digestion, but the connection is profound. The mind and the gut are not separate entities. They are deeply interconnected through what science refers to as the gut-brain axis. Emotional states, attention, and mental engagement influence digestive function in ways we are only beginning to fully understand. When the mind is distracted, overstimulated, or stressed, the body shifts out of the rest and digest mode. Even if you are physically still, your internal state may not be conducive to efficient digestion. Hormonal signals change. Blood flow patterns adjust. The subtle rhythm of the digestive system is altered. Eating becomes less mindful. Signals of fullness may be delayed or ignored. The experience of nourishment becomes mechanical rather than conscious. Over time, this disconnect can influence not just digestion, but overall eating behavior and metabolic health. What is remarkable is how these 5 simple actions, lying down, exercising intensely, overhydrating, consuming stimulants, and engaging in digital distraction, share a common theme. They each disrupt the body's natural state of post-meal equilibrium. The human body is not fragile, but it is precise. It operates through systems that have evolved to function under certain conditions. When those conditions are respected, health emerges naturally. When they are consistently disrupted, even in small ways, imbalance begins to take root. Imagine, instead, a different approach. After eating, you remain upright. Not rigid, not tense, but gently aligned with gravity. You allow your body to do its work. Perhaps you take a slow walk, nothing strenuous. Just enough movement to support circulation and stimulate digestion without overwhelming it. Your breathing remains calm. Your mind is not pulled into a vortex of stimuli. There is a sense of presence, of quiet awareness. In this state, the body thrives. Enzymes function optimally. Nutrients are absorbed efficiently. Energy is distributed where it is needed. This is not about strict rules or rigid discipline. It is about understanding. When we understand the body not as a machine, but as a living system, we begin to act differently. Not out of obligation, but out of alignment. There is also a deeper philosophical dimension to this. Eating is not merely a biological necessity. It is an interaction between the external world and our internal environment. Food becomes part of us. It is transformed, broken down, and reassembled into the very tissues that define our existence. To treat this process casually, or to disrupt it unconsciously, is to overlook something fundamental. But to approach it with awareness is to engage with the body in a more meaningful way. Science, in its essence, is the study of patterns. And the patterns here are clear. The body performs best when given the right conditions. It is not asking for perfection, but for consistency. Small, repeated actions shape long-term outcomes. What we do after eating may seem insignificant in isolation. A single instance of lying down, or drinking too much water, or scrolling through a phone will not define health. But habits are not formed in isolation. They are built through repetition. And repetition is where biology responds. Over weeks, months, years, the body adapts. It compensates, adjusts, and sometimes struggles. Digestive efficiency may decline. Discomfort becomes normalized. Energy levels fluctuate. And often, we look elsewhere for solutions: new diets, supplements, complex interventions, without addressing the simple behaviors that quietly shape our internal environment every day. There is a certain elegance in simplicity. The idea that health can be influenced not only by what we consume, but by how we behave in the moments that follow. If we pause and observe, we begin to see the logic. The body is not resisting us, it is responding to us. Every action sends a signal. Every habit renforce un pattern. And so, the question is not merely what should be avoided, but what should be embraced. A posture that supports digestion, movement that complements it, hydration that respects timing, awareness that enhances the experience of eating rather than distracting from it. These are not restrictions. They are adjustments, subtle, almost imperceptible shifts that align behavior with biology. In a world that often seeks complexity, there is something powerful about returning to fundamentals, about recognizing that the moments after a meal are not empty, but active, not passive, but dynamic. Within those moments, the body is working tirelessly, breaking down, absorbing, transforming. It asks for very little in return. Just a bit of space, a bit of calm, a bit of respect for the processes unfolding beneath the surface. And perhaps that is the essence of it. Health is not always found in dramatic changes or extreme measures. Sometimes it is found in the quiet decisions we make when no one is watching. In the small choices that align us, moment by moment, with the natural intelligence of the body. When we begin to see these patterns, we no longer act out of habit alone. We act with intention. And in that intention, something shifts not just in the body, but in our relationship with it. The meal ends, but the process continues. And what